Good evening and salam everybody. Welcome to the Future Birmingham podcast, part 2 on Saturday, the 4th of April. The Future Birmingham podcast is a platform where we are inviting potential candidates and councillors alike to come on and say their piece. We want to know what they're going to do for our city. We want to know what plans they have to improve our failing city. The next 4 years are critical. The elections of 2026 are critical. We're at a point where we need drastic change. We need someone to step in, take hold of the situation, and start changing our city for the better. This evening, we have with us your party candidate, Mr. Shafaq Hussain, who is standing for the ward of Small Heath. Janab, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you reaching out. Just on a point that Mr. Shafaq did reach out to me, which I really do appreciate. And this platform is for councillors and candidates. Please do reach out if you want to be on the podcast, you want to say your part, you want to say your piece. We're not here to judge. We're not here to be biased towards anybody. We're not affiliated to any particular party. We are simply residents of Birmingham allowing candidates and councillors to say their piece. Janab, thank you.
Thank you for having me again. I think this is a real good opportunity, not only for candidates, but for local residents to hear what individual candidates got to offer.
Absolutely.
And also in terms of what their parties or policies that they are going to be adhering to,
Yes.
and seeing how they can make that difference. And we certainly, I think, at a critical position where we've had, number of years of one particular Labour Party control, and I think there's a real change that's coming. Okay. And we hope that change then means that people are prepared and can offer something that has been absent. And I call that neglect.
And a bit about yourself. What's your background?
Right. I'm a youth worker by trade, if I can use...
Affiliated to Sandwell?
So I can't disclose the authority, but I work as a senior youth officer in a local authority in the West Midlands. I've worked in Aston for a voluntary organisation. I worked in Spark Hill as youth worker, and then I went and had a stint as a lecturer for 15 years at a FE college in Wolverhampton.
Okay.
I can use that because I'm allowed to do that. So within that college, I had the role of the first ever Prince's Trust Volunteers team leader.
Okay, fantastic.
Which was an initiative by now what is King Charles.
Yes.
That was an initiative to train young people and to kind of prepare them to get into life jobs and give them those social skills. So I worked as a team leader in the FE College, and then I was a lecturer.
Okay.
So lecturer in social policy, health and social care.
Have you done anything politically previously?
Politically, I've been very active, and I started my foundation for political activism was fighting on the streets. We in the 80s, some people won't know that, but in the 80s or even late 70s, that we used to have rather racist. You lived in Small Heath. We've had racist attacks where I live, and there's a park called Digby Park, where we were not even allowed to use Digby Park because some of the then quite racist white young men were preventing us to use that.
I was born on Albury Road in 75.
Right, so you know.
So I know, I mean, my very, very, very young recollections. I went to Starbank Nursery. So I do remember it very vaguely. It was tough times.
Right.
It was tough
and
times.
It's very tough. And for us, we had to put a stand on.
Yes.
That we're here to stay, and that was the motto. And I'll develop a bit more about how that political journey took place. And we were obviously on the streets. My first, I can say proudly, caution in the courts was that I threw a brick against the person who was going to run us over. On Swanage Road, because we were in school in Mont Street. So that was a kind of a grounding, and we then started some of these gangs that we had, like the Lynx, like the Redheads, like the Aston Panthers. the idea was that we were young and we were kind of saying, well, at that time it was a BNP, let them come and we will defend our streets. And then my mentor, who recently passed away, Yunus Triabi, he got us to kind of come around and said, look, you can't just fight people on the streets. You have to be politically organized. Yes. So then and he referred us to some of the Asian youth movements that were happening elsewhere. Okay. And then the most famous one was the Bradford 12. Okay. Where some of us then started working and kind of defending our communities. So we went in London in what was a New Mate. And the idea was that we would defend, and some of the people that are too young to know, that even areas like Northfield, we had some Bengali families who moved there, and they were, petrol bombed, or they were really, rubbish thrown at through their doorsteps. And we were kind of, not vigilantes, but kind of being there just to support them and then calling the police if ever we needed that. So it was that kind of emerging of how my political kind of career started. So started doing that in terms of not only Asian youth movements, but we also then went to defend some really prominent cases like the Anvadita case, which is and Muhammad Idris, who's my friend in Handreth. Yeah. And we had to kind of, defend him because he was going to be deported. Okay. At that time, and we'll come to immigration later on in terms of what this new government is trying to do. But at that time, a lot of the moves were to deport people, to create immigration laws which were restricting. So those in the 80s know that some of the people that were even pushed, and the reason that some of us arrived quickly in 1968 and 70 was that there was going to be a law that's going to stop families coming. Okay. So lots of our families were called.
But, these are all national politics issues. Yes. So for the local elections for 2026, you've decided to stand for Small Heath. Yeah. We have the mainstream parties. We have the Conservatives. We have the Labour. We have the Lib Dems. Mm. You're standing for the Your Party. Yeah. Why the Your Party?
Well, we had politically there was no space for people like me. We had created one time what we call now the independents. We had a People's Justice Party that was created in Small Heath. Yes. And we had, in Small Heath and Alum Rock, we had 5 councillors. And unfortunately, those councillors didn't take the move forward. They were just entrenched in terms of keeping power, didn't want to let anybody else in. And it was very unfortunate. But that was the first time that we had challenged the Labour Party. And, there's an old saying in our Asian language that you put a donkey in a Labour ward and you'll win it. So we were trying to counter that. And obviously I stood in a parliamentary seat at that time. Yes. And nearly got nearly 5,000 votes. But that was a first attempt really to challenge the status quo. Yes. And that's what some of us were brave to even do that. Yes. So that's where so there was an absence. I didn't feel comfortable in any of the other main political parties.
Do you feel that there's been maybe a culture of brotherism within the Labour Party up till date?
No, I think it was not just only brotherism, and there was featured that some communities were more proactive. They knew the system, and they happened to be from one particular clan. If I can use that word, brotherly is a way of doing that. And some then did exploit it, and they had same as I know that some of the regional managers, I would call them some white managers, they wouldn't even let people register to become members of the Labour Party. Can you believe it? Yes. So, and these people were really crawling up to them. Yes. And I remember observing one meeting, and they were being treated like dogs. I honestly can say.
And honestly, I concur with you. I mean, you can speak on behalf of the Labour Party. I was part of the Tories, and I stood for councillor in 22. And the reason that I left was because the way that the Asians were being treated. But I can't even say that it was the way the Asians were being treated. It was the way the Asians were allowing themselves to be treated. Okay? Because if you don't allow them to treat you like that, then they won't. I didn't. I stood up to it. You know, at the end of the day, I drive a better car. I'm better looking. I'm more educated. I wear better clothes. I have high-ranking positions. Why should I bow down to anybody? But this was, for me, was a big gripe, big problem, where I seen fellow Asians, unfortunately, bowing down. And we have this stigma, we have this mentalism that the Gora is always right, or we must do things to impress the Gora. And I personally feel that's why Birmingham is now where it is, because the major parties have exploited this maybe, and they've understood this, and they've strategically placed certain people in certain positions just to be able to do things off their backs.
Yeah, and there's so that was there. I certainly felt that some of our people were getting into in these positions, and some of them were from particular brotherhoodies or particular areas. And then the thing that I had a big qualm with, it wasn't just the brotherhood, it was that some of these people were associated with politics back home, you know, from Kashmir or from Pakistan or from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, places where these people were then associated. So if you were associated with a particular party there, then your siblings were being controlled.
So I've got some questions. I've got some questions coming in on the TikTok live. Thanks for joining, people. Please do double tap and share this live. I've got your question here from Rami Bantz. I will ask that question shortly. I've just got that is a question that I have on my list as well. But just to start with, so the Your Party. It's been dysfunctional, to say the least, since its inception, since its launch. The issues between your leadership, with Zara Sultan, with Jeremy Corbyn, the disconnect, the whole fiasco regarding there was a lot of hope. I think they planted a seed of hope in people, where they thought, okay, we now have an alternative. We have Jeremy Corbyn, and we have Zara Sultan, who's very outspoken and very much liked by the community, irrespective of your political beliefs. She was standing up and she was making herself heard. Then they launched the party. Can you call it a launch? I don't know. What happened?
Well, it's very unfortunate that did happen. We had, over 800,000 people in the first 2 weeks.
Yes.
With a contribution from all over the world, all over England or Britain, I wish to say, and it's very unfortunate. But it was the reason this party was instigated was because we had the response from the community.
Yes, exactly.
The community is the one that changed the spectrum of British politics.
Yes,
they voted and got 4 elected MPs. From these inner city wards. Yes. Right. So those 4 MPs, Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultan were in the Labour Party, or Jeremy Corbyn were kind of mulling about looking at some alternative for a long time. But what happened was that this was the response from the community. So I and some of us believe that the birth of this Your Party is the birth of the reaction of our communities taking action, taking that stride to make sure that their presence is felt. And that's what some people forget. Even within the fractions of the Your Party when it started emerging, that some people were just saying some of these labels of stereotypes and accusations. They were, I think, really unfounded, but based on saying that if it's a new party, it has different sets of people, different kind of areas and different kind of thoughts.
Your Party reached out to the community.
Yeah.
The community for once spoke. They spoke, they raised their views, and they supported both these individuals. And it would appear that these individuals, both of them immediately, let those people down.
I think it wasn't these 2 particular individuals. Jeremy Corbyn is an international leader, all credit to him for the support he's given, the principle stance he's taken, and the people love him, really, and they, probably the only living politician that all the communities really love him. So and Zara Sultan has got views, but don't forget there are other MPs. Look at Ayub Khan. He's raised some of the issues in Parliament now that we didn't have any spokesperson before. Okay. So, give credit to those people, even the Adnan and Shaukat. They speak quite elegantly, and that's what was needed in that Parliament.
So who currently sets policy in the party?
Well, it's the party is based on membership, based on grassroots membership, where members should decide the policy. Even the structure they put it on is a brilliant, innovative way of making sure that local people have a say. And local people are the ones that are going to be making decisions in the future. Even the leadership, we had a system process where they didn't even want one leader. They wanted to make sure that that leadership is accountable to the masses. So it's about making sure that the communities get engaged. They have a say at a local level. And we just had a process of even standing. If you wanted to stand, the local people had to endorse you. Okay. And each of the candidates that's been endorsed.
Every party does need a leadership structure. It does need somebody at the helm, at the top, leading and guiding the direction. At this present moment, who is that?
That's Jeremy Corbyn. Okay. He's the parliamentary leader of the party. And what's
Zara Sultan's role in this?
Zara Sultan, amongst the others, are part of the CEC. Okay. There's what we call a Central Executive Committee. Yes. And that Central Executive Committee not only is made of politicians, this is some councillors and MPs, but it's also made of lay people from the community who are then
and
part
the
that
financial
executive
mismanagement and the financial handling. Are we over that era?
Yes, we are. All the processes and procedures are in place now, and the ill-advised of some people, and we don't really know who. All of us know the bottoms of it in terms of how and why that was happened. But as far as we're concerned, that's past it. Some of us are very active in wanting to make sure that your party then is there as people's party, and that represents not the few billionaires, but people that are being brought and being engaged from the grassroots.
What do you see the direction of the party in the next, say, 4 years?
I see it very much having a real strong representation, not only in councils, but across in the communities. Okay. So, we have to wait for 3-4 years before the parliamentaries come. Yes. But look at the initiatives they've taken. In Manchester, for example, we had the right to stand as a candidate. Yes. And we then thought as a kind of a group of people, we wanted to make sure that we had the best chance from the left spectrum, if I can use it. And we supported the Green candidate. Okay. And that was a success because then politically we were saying that we weren't really interested in just not promoting our party, but in the interest of getting people, and tackling some of the ills of our society, like the reform and others, that are there to divide our communities and exploit some of our working class communities, and some of our working class white communities. Okay. And that's where we think that your party and others are going to be working on.
Okay. So in terms of Smallheath.
Yeah, Smallheath. I love it.
It's an area we all love. Yeah. We all use. We all up and down Commentary Road regularly. But Smallheath has a huge amount of problems.
It has. But I think what we need to also say that some people in Smallheath, they love it. They choose to live here. We got billionaires. And I say billionaires. We got billionaires, millionaires who live in Smallheath, and they choose to live there. Okay. Not because they their cars or their livelihood could be more expensive than their own even houses, but people choose to. It's a community, and if you look at the makeup of that community, with the first generation of Kashmiris, the Pakhtun community, the Bengali community, and now some of the emerging main communities like the Somali community and other Arab communities are arriving. It's a hub, a multicultural, in the right way, a multiracial.
What are the current issues in Small Heath then?
So the current issues, we've got massive underinvestment.
Okay.
We've got we need to make not only the city council, and this is why Quam sometimes some of these, even the independents and others, they don't understand the system. We've got the West Midland Combined Authority that's got a over £1 billion pound budget with 4 priorities, including children and young people.
Okay.
So where are those jobs for young people? Training and stuff, that's one of their budgets. So why is there no jobs for people in areas like Small Heath? Why is there, they've got housing and infrastructure. Why is it that we can't? I've got pictures today. Malmesbury Road, for example. People are trouble parking on the pavements.
Yes.
Because somebody hasn't even created some parallel parking that could accommodate 150 cars. We were calculating today that in Malmesbury Road, one section, 150 car parks could be created, and that's because the investment needs to come from the Investment and Combined Authority. Why is it that the streets in the town or city centre are looking immaculate, refurbished?
They don't. Listen, it's a Birmingham-wide problem at the moment.
Right.
Small Heath and certain areas in Birmingham are more affected than others, but it's a Birmingham. I mean, parking is a Birmingham-wide problem, but it's concentrated issues in B8, B9, B10, B11, and B12, because every Asian household has average of 4 vehicles, and the roads weren't created for that. Right, outside your house, you can barely get 2 cars for your house. If your neighbour's got 2 cars, and then suddenly it accumulates. So if every house has now got 3 to 4 vehicles, those vehicles need to go somewhere. So you think that parallel parking, diagonal parking will sort that issue out?
It could be in certain areas. We've got that problem where there's some really radical thinking needs to happen. That and where they can accommodate, then they should. Okay. And I think it's not the local politician who could do that. It's the infrastructure investment that needs to come.
Okay.
And those are the people. And somebody in Birmingham, they overall not only just city council politicians, but the West Midland Combined Authority and the local and the government needs to come in and address this is a major issue. Car parking has been one major issue.
What do you do about the rubbish?
So the rubbish, and I was a chair of the End Bin Strike campaign, for the last year and a half. We've been campaigning to try to, get them both City Council and Unite Union to mediate, because they weren't even talking to each other. So after a lot of pressure from the community, they started talking.
Yes.
And then we were very close at certain phases where it should have been resolved. And for some, I still kind of believed really in terms of why the city council has spent over 17 million, in terms of the extra costs that they've occurred, when they would have solved this issue with about 8 million budget.
Okay. And
they also had themselves to blame, because when the equal pay settlement was done, they should have addressed this issue of bin workers. Okay. So why is it the bin workers now are, unfortunately, some of them are going to lose a lot of substantial amount of money. Yeah. Some of them even said they're going to lose houses. Okay. So it's not fair. But the thing that we highlighted again, which is typical of the kind of things that need to be addressed, disparity. Why was it that some of the outer areas like Sutton, Harborne, Edgbaston, some of the affluent areas, people were not even aware there's a strike in Birmingham. Whilst, internationally we were called, oh, you got really rubbish on your door. Yeah. So all the inner city areas were really not covered, and the collection was just abnormal all the time. And then because it was neglect, it was clear neglect that these inner city and not bothered about people's rights. And people who were phoning me with saying, I got a respiratory issue, I can't breathe. Yes. I'll have to, I can't open my window. I have to get out of the house to get some fresh air. Which is, in a country
Cove Road
yeah.
attracts a lot of antisocial behaviour.
Yes, it is.
Cove Road attracts a lot of beggars. Cove Road attracts. I mean, a friend of mine a couple of months ago, phone got stolen in a restaurant, and within a few minutes, that phone went from a restaurant up by Morrison's, and we found it at a newsagent or at a bob shop down by Munn Street. The network that they operate in is so vast, and luckily we're local lads, so we know how to find things, and we found it. But it was a beggar who'd passed it on to another, and it appeared at a shop, and we went in and we kind of put the phone back. This happened to me, to a friend of mine, but I was there. So Birmingham, Cove Road, the traffic issue around Munn Street particularly, and the build up back towards Green Lane, and the build up back towards Charles Road. That whole bottleneck, and then you have the food court appearing right on the corner of Gornhillick Road. It's an absolute fiasco. Where do you start and what do you do?
Okay. Well, firstly, Coventry Road is a major thriving, area where our small businesses work, and one of the things that I've initiated is to make a small traders association. Now, when the small traders association starts working, then they could really kind of raise their concerns or raise their voice for help. And not only in terms of maybe one suggestion is that they should have these radio comms. So if anybody steals something from one particular shop, then the others can alert others. And the police should be kind of around for that to be addressed. But the one major issue they've got is the car parking also.
Yes, huge.
Right. So one suggestion we've got from your party, and I've put it in our leaflet, that we want the park house demolished, because at the moment,
which is the park house?
Park house is on the corner of on the Park of Coventry Road.
Yes.
Entrance.
Okay.
Yes.
By
the main entrance.
Yes.
There's a park house. Lots of our friends and activists who are, like friends of Smalley Park, they've been really, for the last decade, really been wanting to revamp that building, but the city council have said now that house cannot be, it's not fit for purpose now, and not can be. So my suggestion is, and my colleague Kabir's suggestion is, that what we do is we then ask the city council to demolish that, build an art centre there, similar to the Midland Art Centre, and create about 100 cars.
Okay.
There's a space there at the back where there's a garden area, which is now being used for antisocial behaviour. Okay. People do drugs. People do lots of antisocial behaviour there. Yeah. So that could be revamped. It could be created. So the people who are coming to visit that, Coventry Road, they could have ample parking. And our other suggestion is that if they look at other models, they could potentially move the pavement further down and take maybe about 6 foot of the park's entrance at the front of the Coventry Road, and create a parking space diagonally.
Okay.
There could be. It's done in Manchester.
Okay.
So we've seen models. I've got some photographs that we can share with people, and we said this is something. Again, the investment needs to come from authority. It's not local council budget that could be done. It needs to be a combined authority.
Talking about them.
So yes, so there are issues,
but
what we're saying is there's some people need to find some solutions.
Talking about the Mac Centre and talking about the park.
Yeah.
Earlier today, I went for a jog in Canal Park. Smalley Park. I mean, it's a park that most people in Smalley have been to. I grew up in that park. I don't want to go in there right now, day or night.
I would argue. Though, it's not as the image sometimes. These areas are conveyed are not right. It's a perception that sometimes, I don't want to go into. We had a project where somebody said, I blink as soon as I catch a bus from city centre.
Do you think the park is safe?
I think it is safe.
You think
We have lots of women using the park
Okay.
for their walks. A lot of people who are now got health issues.
But it
use the
has
park.
been. It has been.
It has, but the investment that needs to happen is we need to have youth workers.
Yes.
We need to have enforcement officers. We need some detached youth workers who can actually organize things in the park. We need to have sports coaches. So if you look at it, if it's a thriving park, historically, I used to swim in the in the paddling pool there.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, yeah, once it was a thriving park, it was a hub of the community, and I want to really, and I can say today, I really have got passionate to make that hub a park as a thriving park, but not to neglect Digby Park, as we know there's some.
No, every park should be treated equally, but I mean, Smallheath Park in particular, because I remember the days when there used to be bonfire nights there.
Right. Yes.
Right. We used to go on the 5th of November, and as a kid, these memories stay with you, and then they stopped it because of antisocial behaviour, because of fighting, because of I think someone got shot. It does unfortunately have a very bad reputation, and then when you walk through the park, you see condoms, you see injections, you see all this kind of stuff which you don't want your children or your grandchildren to be playing with. Yeah. We do have a problem, and we can't say there is a problem, and this problem does need addressing. Yeah. And I appreciate it's got 4 gates and it's four. There's 4 angles to it, but if Canal Park can be maintained the way it is, why can't Smallheath Park be like that?
That's why I'm saying there's disparity of resources. Yeah. If
and
you look at how many
failure
times
from the leadership of Smallheath, is that a failure from the representatives of Smallheath that are not doing their job?
Well, I think the failure is the investment that needs to come from authorities who are then responsible for looking after that. So the Parks Department, for example, is under-resourced, underfunded, and one manager has to look after 10 parks.
Yes,
and then the priority is where Canal Park or somewhere else. So these parks get neglected.
Yes.
And so we should have representatives who need to make sure that our cases...
Are you pledging to be the voice for that?
I certainly am, because I use the park regularly. Okay. My grandchildren use it. My family use it. My neighbours use it. So we want to make sure that we...
Bolton Road under your patch?
Sorry?
Bolton Road is under your patch?
It's not under my patch, but it's a concern. Even the BBC commented on Bolton Road and some of the roads are in our neighbouring ward.
Okay.
You've got to ask me something about Bolton Road. I can tell you if I've got a comment on it.
I mean, Smallheath, honestly, the thing is, it's an area we are affiliated to, and we have to visit regularly. There's several mosques there. There's businesses there. There's eateries there. There's family there. So unfortunately, it's an area we can't avoid as much as we'd love to. And that's really sad, because for someone who's born in Smallheath, I would rather avoid it. And that's a concern. Because it's absolute mayhem.
I would have the opposite.
You can cover it as much as you like. Yeah. It is a problem. I'm going to go after this. Saturday night is snooker night. I'll be playing snooker on Comtree Road. Will my car be safe when I come back out? Will it have his wheels still there? I don't know. And it's blind faith.
Look, nobody's saying that there's not issues, but we've got to look at, if it's crime, we've got to look at the root causes of crime. We've got to look at if
there was a video yesterday. Yeah. Yesterday there was a video on TikTok. There was a vehicle parked outside the old Barclays Bank, and there was a bus coming down Cove Road from City, stuck between the bollard and the car, and a couple of brothers got together and they jacked the car forward. This is a regular occurrence. You've got the bollards outside for us.
Yes.
And then you've got the bollards at Mont Street Lights. And then beyond that, you've got the bollards just before Barclays Bank. Now, that bottleneck is caused there because people just don't care. They park where they wish. Buses are coming. They're stuck. Obviously, a bus can't get through if there's a bollard in the car. So it is effectively become the road of lawlessness. People just don't care.
I think, well, look, that example was just clearly an example. I'm glad you shared it, because one of the things I want to push this about this fly tipping and stuff that's coming. That was very irresponsible for somebody who knows there's a bus route.
Yes.
Right. Not only the bus, God forbid, if there's an emergency
Absolutely.
and an ambulance needs to come.
or fire brigade.
I would say to people, please do take responsibility for your actions.
But what happens is, and you're very right, but the psyche of people is, if somebody else is doing it, it's okay for me to do it. You need to have some sort of enforcement to lay the law down, make an example of one or two, which will then prevent anybody else from doing it. Yeah. So if I'm seeing if I'm seeing a car parked, double parked, I'm thinking it's all right. No one's going to say nothing here. Yeah. By nature, humans are like that.
Yes,
we will get away with whatever we can get away with. Now, maybe this person didn't appreciate that he'd parked so close to a bollard, but it clearly was a problem.
I think in hindsight, I hope when they see the video that they'll be asking themselves what a stupid thing to do. But what I'm saying is that not only I hope that they reflect on that, but I also hope that, like you said, there needs to be enforcement. If there's not people there, and people are even how responsible it is that some people are going to a masjid and parking somewhere where they can't park, and these ticket people are coming in and giving tickets at that time. There's an example in a neighboring area where on a Friday for a masjid time, people are educated to say, look, these are particular places to park. Why don't they then open up spaces? There's a car park just in the park area, which is closed. Yes. It's committed with lots of antisocial behavior. People use needles and everything there. Yeah. But because it's closed, a lot of people can't use it. Yeah. And I've been pushing with my colleague to see if we can use that, open that parking space and let the school and let the community use that. So what we're saying is that there are answers to a lot of things. If there is this illegal parking or people are not, obeying the law, then the enforcement should be...
Do you feel that maybe enforcement is maybe a bit reluctant or scared to go out on Country Road and issue tickets? Or?
No, they shouldn't be scared, but I mean, it's their job, and they should be coming out to enforce that.
But let's be honest, no one's going to risk life and limb. Right.
Our community is not lawless. Look, our community is very law-abiding. There are people who are irresponsible sometimes for parking and other things, but the parking also is because there's lack of parking. Anyway.
If elected on the 7th of May, and you have a huge task on your hands, because you're starting from -0, right? What's the first thing you do?
Well, my first question is how much money is being invested. What are the issues? Okay. So we know there's a big issue that there's lack of jobs and training, apprenticeships including, or entrepreneurships. We want to make sure that there's a lot of investment on that. Yes. Why is it that 10 years our swimming pool in Small Heath has been closed? Yeah,
that's another. That pool I grew up. I learned to swim in that pool.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So what we're saying is, why is it that a lot of people didn't know that the Sports England gave 100,000, they were going to increase it to 150,000. The city council, the Labour City Council, returned that money to them, saying, "No, we can't match that with everything." So where's your priority with a over £1 billion budget?
Wow!
Why is it that areas? And just look at the figures. If you look at, when I was in my role to coach. Young people who wanted to stand for youth parliament and youth cabinet. There's a lot of young people around the country. We used to ask those questions, and they couldn't understand. Why is it that these politicians can't simply... The young people are very clever and very kind of outright. They were saying, isn't it mind-boggling that why is it you got this much money and you're not investing in these areas where it's needed? So it's a common...
It's been failed incredibly.
And it's not morally right, is it?
It's incredible.
That you got the Commonwealth Games.
Yes.
You had the Commonwealth Games.
Billions. Which didn't need to be spent.
Right. And not even our taxi drivers were allowed to escort the officials around.
And what's happening with that right now? They're doing
and the waste of money they had. So I'm just saying the neglect and the waste for the last 14 or 15 years, whatever. And don't forget that the Tories and Libs, I'm sorry you were ex-Tory, the Labour and the Tories and Libs, when they were in coalition. So we need to ask people, be careful about who you're electing this time, because the people who've been tried and tested previously, you need to be questioning them in terms of making sure.
From your canvassing and from your door knocking, do you people still have that love or blind faith for Labour?
I honestly can say to people, and I hope I'm right, there's been a really awareness about that how people were being fooled by the Labour Party. They thought it was a party of workers. It was a party that stood for black people.
And in all fairness, at one point, it was many years ago. But
I'm not sure.
It's been diluted.
But even then, I don't think we had any alternative.
Yes.
And if you look at now, that this current Labour Party and Labour government is running on the tunes of the far right. So we've got to understand.
Your party the alternative?
And if our party is the real alternative, that we will be addressing the issues
Even
that our people need.
Dysfunctional leadership.
There's no dysfunctional leadership. The leadership in place, Jenny Corbyn is the parliamentary leader, and we've got a really good central executive committee, people who are very well connected to the communities. They know what they're doing. They've been very experienced. Some of them have, careers in the Labour Party, for example, and they know how to run a government. They know how to run a
There's a lot of defectors in the Independents. There's a lot of defectors in your party. There's a lot of defectors in the Green Party. There's a lot of defectors in various parties that I've come across. But they were all initially Labour candidates or party members or affiliated to the Labour Party, a lot more than any Tories that I've come across. It's always been Labour, and that does worry me as well, because at one point they were keen followers of Labour, which means they upheld the Labour values.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. Question some of them.
Yes,
and some of their loyalties.
I do have
and
to
even at that time.
Yes.
Look at them. Some people in the Labour Party were told, do not use the word P. Yeah. Do not even use the word Palestine. Yeah. Right? And if you're morally about serving people, and you're trying to, why do you want to become a councillor? Why do you want to become a politician? Yeah. The real drive is to make a change, is to fight for the rights of people. Okay. Right? Then if a party tells you, do not use the word, cannot speak about genocide. Never mind the genocide. Genocide is a swear word for some people in the Labour Party, but they weren't even allowing to use them to stand up for Palestine. Why is it that these?
How can I trust my vote to a party that maybe won't be here in a couple of years down the line?
I certainly think that's not true. I think there's a whole heap of people. I've met a 76-year-old somebody from ex-birth, went to a conference in Liverpool, and he says, I'm doing this. I want to be in your party because I want the generations of lives improved in generations. So I'm saying to you, we will be committed. Your party is here to stay, and is here to serve the people that.
We have a quick fire round.
Right. Okay.
One word answers or one sentence answers. Corbyn or Sultana?
Corbyn for me.
Is your party
even though
leadership,
I got sympathies, Zara's a Kashmiri background.
Is your party leadership united? Yes or no?
I think so. We've got elected CEC now, and we certainly are thriving to make sure that there's inroads there for people.
Are you individually? Are you 100% independent? Meaning the party isn't pushing your policy, or are you following the line of the party?
I certainly will be following the line of the party, but I'm certainly the party gives you the right to make a case, to argue, and not same as for example, the Labour Party that they won't, or the Tory Party that they won't let you even raise an issue that you.
If the situation ever arises, would you ever publicly disagree with your party leadership?
I certainly can make a case. There's a process for us to put the argument, and that's why the leader, the party makes sure that the local people, the grassroots people, have got a real say.
Do you think that the mainstream parties have completely failed Birmingham?
I certainly think so, and it's on the record. When you got billions of budgets, and areas like Small Heath have got not even a swings in the parks, that's disgusting, and that makes my blood boil.
Are you prepared to make decisions that may sometimes upset your own supporters?
Yes, certainly. I'm sure on principle there are decisions that some people might not like, but there's what we're saying is in the interest of the people and the interest of the people's lives, that there are issues that you have to be strong. Look at the example of the lack of leadership, that you can't resolve a bin strike. The children are saying in the playgrounds that why is these adults not being able to solve a bin strike?
Politics. Is it about principle or is it about power?
It's about principle as far as I'm concerned.
If forced, constituents or party?
I think that's for me, I think they're both. You have to. The party can't exist unless it listens to the people.
Do you genuinely believe that you have a chance of winning, or are you just building your profile?
No, I don't need that portfolio. I'm well respected in the community, and I've served my community as much as I can in my older years. I choose to live. I'm passionate about Small Heath, and I will serve the people in its own right.
Okay, 30 seconds. That camera. Why should the people of Small Heath vote for you?
I want Small Heath to be a prosperous and a livable area that people are proud of. And I know people are proud of living in Small Heath, but I want to make sure that we address the neglect, want to bring the investment, and we want to make sure that we thrive as a community and become a map of Birmingham.
Thank you very much. I wish you the very best on your campaign. We'll be following you closely. And if you win, we will have you back every month to get updates as to what, because the one thing we will be doing this time around is holding councillors accountable, because I think that's where there's been a massive failure. There's been a massive disconnect between the residents and the councillors. Now, with social media platforms and many ways now you can engage with them, you can get them onto a podcast, and you can hold them to account.
Yes.
Because we need accountability. Because
I did want you to raise this. The problem we've got is once somebody gets elected, 4 years, they think they're not accountable. And when you knock on the door, some people are very vocal. They're saying you only come when it's election time. Yes. And sometimes people are correct, they're right. But sometimes they're not aware that you are doing whatever you can do. Some people are not aware. But some people have exploited the situation. And this 4-year, term is something that I know one of your independent candidates made that recommendation that either you should have 2 terms. When we had the elections every year, people were accountable. The parties were accountable. Yes. So because if you got one
year is a bit of a short stint.
No, it wasn't 1 year. It was every 3 years.
Okay.
So everybody had a go. Yeah. But the problem was, the issue was, and the good thing was that the party were accountable. Okay. So if you had a really rubbish candidate.
How many candidates are you standing in Birmingham?
At the moment, we're going through the process. The endorsement process is going through the members selecting. Yeah. So at the moment, we're not very clear in how many numbers we will have. We'll know by Tuesday how many numbers we'll have.
Thoughts on the independent movement?
I think it's a breath of fresh air. I would hope that my friends there, I call them friends, I hope that they get their act together in terms of not being trapped by the right-wing media. I feel that they've been trapped. And just because they're getting a bit of limelight in the mainstream or even the right-wing media, that is not good for our communities. So just be careful. But there's a lot of good things they've got to offer. Yes. And I think that they should be applauded. But what I'm saying is what they should do is make sure that number one priority is
Aftab has just joined. Walaikum Assalam Aftab. I think he announced that he was pulling out yesterday due to his father's ill health. But yes, Janab. So thank you very much.
So
wish you the very
can I
best.
say to Aftab,
Yeah.
I think I applaud you for putting your family first.
Absolutely. Listen, family's family.
Yeah.
Right. And honestly, hats off to him. It is what it is. And I know how passionate he is about politics.
Yes,
because
of course,
When in 22, he stood for the Tories.
Yes, you did.
And I worked with him then. So Aftab, we wish you the best.
Your father,
We pray
really
for your father,
Yeah.
and may the Almighty give him good health.
Yeah.
But honestly, Janab, thank you very much for your
Thank
time.
you, thank
We look forward to your campaign, and inshallah, best of luck.
Thank you.
People, that's it for today. Tomorrow evening, we have three. We have two that I can announce and one that I cannot announce yet. So 7 till 8, we have the Young Independent from Sparkbrook. 8 till 9, we have the Independent from Hodge Hill. And then 9 till 10, we have a surprise guest. It may even be the Home Secretary. You never know. But tune in. 9 o'clock tomorrow. Tune in from 7. Get your cup of tea and your pack of biscuits and stay with us throughout the evening. We shall keep you entertained. Thank you for joining, and keep sharing and tapping the like button.